Alrighty. Let's do this. We're almost... We're nearing the end of this game. It's been a fun road. But all things will come to an end. The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. Oh boy. We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it. I believe you've had even more wearing day than Mikitoba and I know. You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in the court earlier. So this prosecutor, Asagi, had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruto. I mean, it's incredible to think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. When all this started, almost a year ago now. Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So, what news of Judge Jigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikitoba, this must be quite a shock for him. Yes. Yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you for the matter only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already? What was so urgent though, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. Well, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone. Ah, what a feast it is. If I were none the wiser, I would think that the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Tomorrow's could be a very long day, so eat up. In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well. Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there. Why ever not? Are we in set places this evening? Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. For me. That's right, I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey. I see, well, that's terribly kind of you. Professor Mickey. It's a shame, really. What do you mean? Well, for a brief moment I believed it. Susan and I were half-sisters, I mean. Oh! Iris, do you mean... Wait, so... Huh? Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened in on the conversation you had, after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left. What? What?! The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikitoba are Iris' father. Then what? It's about that, Iris. You know, I know, you can't tell me at the moment. Iris... Pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get any apologetic pheasant? So just who is Iris' father? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today, but... So then, let us dine, while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. A fun idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious. Eat as much as you like, they're always seconds. This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan, and about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. It's still the same as before? Let's see. Oh, she seems to have drawn a lot of little stick figures all lined up. Look. Look, cheap apples at the market. Is what all of them say. What? The little figures could speak? All your questions would be answered if only you would read this month's Grants magazine. I only... Blah. Something new on the... If I remember correctly, this large and imposing lump of iron is called a typewriter. To think that every single one of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes blossomed from this very machine. It's such a dreamy thought. I actually had a go on it the other day. The metal bars move when you hit the keys. It got all tangled up somehow. That made Iris angry. Mr. Nahada, you're ruining my dreamy thoughts. Please don't do that again. Now I've made Susato angry as well. Oh boy. Really? Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie. Yorkshire pudding, it all looks mouth-wateringly good. Indeed it does. And if it were accompanied by even a morsel of pheasant, it would be a perfection. You're still on that? Oh, it really does look like a feast for celebrating a victory in court. Or indeed, for drowning one's sorrows after defeat. I hope you weren't referring to the trial tomorrow, Mr. Sholmes. He's clearly still in mourning over the pheasant at the moment. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikitoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy. Even though I played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes, could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt. You're hungry to learn more of my deep love of game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. Jones, would you mind looking at this? This is hardly time for Mr. Nahado, and I'm sure you will appreciate. Oh, no, of course not. My attention is clearly drawn to one single matter now, the pheasant. Anyone would think he's hadn't eaten in weeks! Oh my... I'm actually having an ice pack on my neck right now, so... I'm a little bit, yeah. Anyway, telegram from Japan. Let's talk about that. So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan, then? Ah, this? I think my lucky stars had arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asagi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. What? Those 4 names! We've come across that exact same list before. Yep. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. But there were 5 names, weren't there? What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asagi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson, but we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by someone in the British government to somebody in Japan. So why are the names coming up again now? Yes, where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes? I have here the message I had wired yesterday. I'm going to read it to you. Enter Judge Jigoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names need by tomorrow, Nadahodo. I sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. You asked Inspector Hasanaga to undertake such an onerous task for you. And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Jigoku. He was the intended recipient. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies. Am I going crazy? Because like I could have sworn there was a 5th name. I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. I need to confirm something. Okay. Aftermath. Hatsuki. Okay. Oh. Okay, there were only 4 names. I could have sworn there was a 5th name, like a name that none of them recognized. Oh, like A Shin. No one would recognize A Shin's name. Like Asashin's name. Or Asashin's name. So Kazuma's death. Let's talk about that. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Buria. It was for nothing. Kazuma wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us. Your great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Mrs. Sato. And then I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. Oh my, you mean... The arrangement between our 2 countries was already in place. 1 university student lawyer and 1 judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill in the place originally intended for Mr. Asaki, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma from coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Nahado. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? Yeah, I mean... At first I thought it was just because you were being so nice, but now you're being like... And I was like, ah! The terms of the study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice of both Great Britain and Japan. In light of Mr. Asaki's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. Oh. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer and the study tour can continue, surely. But there's no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer. The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. So, you manipulated me! I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it! But if it was all contrived, I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as a perpetrator. What do you suppose became of her? Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. Huh? I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. I seem to remember Mrs. Sato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. At least, I mean... I'm afraid I simply can't comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why are you so determined to stop Cosmo-sama from reaching Britain? Yeah, that's what I want to know. The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. An omen that, at the very moment in time, is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. What is this omen? You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's part of the pocket watching twist just at the time, isn't it? It's called the crown, I believe. A watch would be quite useless without one. The crown, like what sits on top of a monarch's head. It's a very grand name for such a tiny part, but actually, yes, Mr. Nahara? If this is a crown, I have a feeling I might have seen a monarch around here somewhere with a very rare head. If by monarch you mean pocket watch, then I'm quite sure you have. What do you think, Mrs. Sato? I feel sure I know exactly what will fit here. Really, I was just thinking precisely the same thing. We're about to see that the little round component is actually part of Inspector Grex's broken pocket watch. Really, I was just thinking precisely that too. Yep, fits perfectly. It even looks like a perfect fit. I knew it. Alright, perhaps you knew it. I'll make a note of this new information at once. Okay, the small component, like, it was part of Inspector Gregson's pocket watch. Huh. My webcam is not actually not triggering me anymore, so I'm actually, like... Oh yeah, I'm using a new webcam this time, so I'm actually... So, it's actually, like, it's probably, like, better quality, and it's supposedly lossless, or, that there should be no delay between vision, but I'm pretty sure there's still a bit of a delay, which is unfortunate. Okay, not the Yasuki papers. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Yagoga's office that should be searched, so you obviously knew that that's where the list of names would be found. K. Asagi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we only learned of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now, and only because they appeared as part of the top-secret government communications that were leaked. That's true, yes. But at the time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Then, around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year in fact, when you were both still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets, because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments. You're perpetually doing what? How? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Herlock Sholmes, when he has designs on knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, a fabulous line. Now, 1 moment after the list of 4 names was wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out I was partly correct, and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us all about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they are somehow connected. As I said, when I learned of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because, you see, there was someone else on the list who I believed to be recently deceased. What? Who? A. Shin, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavory classes. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly, I became fearful that the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list, K. Asagi and T. Gregson. Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself, but I determined it would be safest if young Asagi were to stay away from Britain. So that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Okay, exactly. So it was a hit list. So you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes. Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I recounted many tales about Asagi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course. Oh no. So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know. Oh, Iris. I know he wasn't my daddy, but still. That's very sad. Oh, so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No. But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. A big hole, Mr. Nahado. Ah, yes. You mean about Asa Shin, I presume. Oh, of course. Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Giselle Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. What? Topsy? What happened? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I believe all 4 names on the list were the names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Very much so. Asa Shin was a killer! So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it? Indeed. And it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. Oh gosh! Oh no! Instead of just being a hit list, it was like victim followed by killer. So, oh my goodness. Or something like that. Like her visiting student's status being merely a front. Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Asashin is because he was a target of an assassination. But why? And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you? There is another among the four who subsequently became a visiting student. Wait, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma? He did say in court earlier today... Yes, on October 31st, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Atsugi accepted the mission a year ago now. Surely not. In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange. An assassin exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have got involved in something like that? Let's assume that we have two parties, each wishing to dispose a distinct individual. Those two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange. So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target, then Kazuma is sent to kill his target. But why? It certainly does sound like an exchange. But what on earth is the point? But don't forget, Nahoda, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction. You're telling me an assassin gets diplomatic immunity? For both cases? Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our two countries, so the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels. Highest levels? These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but by contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That dissociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. Wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of the assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Seishiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asugi's target was actually Inspector Gregson. But Kazuma's here for Gregson, so Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Sholmes... I told him my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the exhibition, that he'd be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. Oh gosh. Alrighty, Lewin, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time. Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Oh, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This certainly has been a night to remember. It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister. Aww! I'm sorry, Iris. Aww! I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. You're already basically sisters. But it sounded like we would be worthy. I would be delighted to become your sister. Really? So you teach me all the ways you know to throw Runa to the floor? Yes, of course. That would be my pleasure. You didn't have to agree quite so readily! Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's gonna be my big sister, you could be my big brother. I mean, of course, yes, of course. If you help me, I'll always be your brother. Yeah. Well, no, not rest. We must always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you so well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Right, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now, because it's for my big brother and sister. What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing for what? You'll just have to see and wait and see. Oh. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths whilst posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Ikoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I'd been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden. But at the same time, I felt I would see the lights again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. That's sweet. Well, anyway, that's gonna be it for tonight. That's gonna be all for tonight. See you next time. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're gonna start the trial. We're gonna do a trial. We got this. Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. As with the closed trial 10 years ago, some astonishing facts have come to light in these proceedings. The revelation that the well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice, and the discovery of that a respected Yard Inspector was at its heart until he perished in an assassination plot. Well, I say to all members of the judiciary here present on this occasion that we will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Consuls, you will undertake this trial with the resolve to pursue the truth to the bitter end. Resolve, yes, that's my intention. My lord, if I may inquire, the defendant may speak. On what grounds is Kazuma Asuki permitted to continue his role as prosecutor? I mean, good question to ask. He has admitted to colluding with the victims in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. He shouldn't be enjoying the privilege of freedom, let alone be leading the prosecution. I submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting that judgment of my transgressions be delayed by 1 day. You did what? In today's proceedings, I intend to expose everything. My whole life for the last 10 years has been leading up to this 1 day. Kazuma, whatever the outcome of this trial, I give my word that I will accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however service. And however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. Cosmo is bursting with hostility again. I get the distinct impression that we're heading into a very dangerous territory. Is that really even Cosmo-sama staying before us? As an extreme exception to normal practices, I have granted this prosecutor's request. The defense finds this acceptable, I presume? Yes, my lord. In that case, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the closed hearing of Barak von Zieks. The defense is ready, my lord. The prosecution is more than ready. Very well then, this preamble has taken long enough. Hotsuka Asagi, begin. As you wish, my lord. The prosecution calls the first witness to the stand. Bring Seishiro Jigoku into the courtroom. At last then, we've reached the final battle. He's putting literally everything on the line now in order to get to the truth. Come on, Ryunosuke. It's time that needs to be resolved, because this is going to test it to the limit. Alright then. A judge being called as a witness. Witness, state your name and occupation for the court. Ha. So it was you who issued this, was it? Your subpoena? I did what was necessary. Ha 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 ha! Well, look what the young man has become. I didn't think I'd see the day when you take that tone with me, I must say. The witness will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions asked. My name is Seishiro Jigoku, a Supreme Court judge from the Empire of Japan. 16 years ago, this man came to London as a visiting student. 6 years later, he returned to Japan. As well as presiding over the Supreme Court, he is also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. I am, of course, fully aware of Mr. Jigoku and his preeminent roles. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of that Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. It was a great honor to be involved in the negotiations. I put all my all into that treaty. Judge Jigoku, I must ask. Well, I never fancied the young murdering student turned up here at all places. You acquitted me yourself! And now, I'm a practicing defense lawyer. Yes, and full of self-importance like your friend across the courtroom, I see. You came here to London by invitation to the International Forensic Science Symposium, but then, without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France. Took flight? I'd have to object to that turn of phrase. Then explain yourself. What exactly were the circumstances? Well, I was somewhat expecting this. And I'm sorry to say, I decline to comment. What? Leaving the country prematurely when I was an invited guest may be questionable etiquette, but my decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify. Unrelated, you say? I appreciate that a respected police inspector has been killed, for which I offer my condolences. However, being an alien, I'd obviously never met the man, nor do I know the first thing about him. Except we do. As such, I'm in no position to testify. It's as simple as that. So you would run from all this? I beg your pardon. This case is more far-reaching than the murder of Inspector Gregson. It has ties to another murder, a case that was tried in Japan almost a year ago now. A year ago in Japan. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson, you mean? That's right, and you, Judge Jigoku, are at the heart of both cases. The defense has evidence to prove it. Well, Ryunosuke, I see from the look in your eyes that you're resolved to carry this through to the very end, too. Yeah, let's see your evidence then. What proof do you have that Seishiro Jigoku is involved in this case? This is a telegram detailing a communication sent between Britain and Japan approximately 1 year ago. The communication contained 4 names: Kei Asagi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, and J. Wilson. Hold it! You little... Where did you get that? In Tokyo. From your office, Judge Jigoku. What? How on earth did you... What's all this about? Why is my name on that list? This list of 4 names follows a certain pattern. T. Gregson and J. Wilson are the names of victims. Kei Asagi and A. Shin are the names of assassins. No! No! A year ago in Tokyo, Dr. John H. Wilson's life was taken in a Western-style restaurant in the capital. The culprit was found to be a visiting student who went by the name of Giselle Brett, but her real name was Asa Shin, a professional killer sent on a mission to kill from Great Britain. A. Shin and her victim John Wilson, or J. Wilson, and the murder that took place here in London was the counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Asagi, whose victim was the British police inspector Tobias Gregson. Kei Asagi and T. Gregson. One assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other. What exactly is the defense suggesting? These 2 cases of murder, one that took place in Britain and one in Japan, were masterminded by a pair of individuals from each country as a form of assassin exchange. In the telegram the defense has acquired is proof of this international contract to kill. What? The telegram was found in your office, Judge Jigoku. In other words, the mastermind in Japan was you. Judge Jigoku. What's this all about? I'm just gonna say this right now. I am betting that the mastermind in the other was Male Strongheart. Like it had like both judges, both of Supreme Court, and you, Kazuma, you lied. During yesterday's proceedings, you acknowledged that you'd accepted the assassination mission, but the mark wasn't Judge Jigoku at all. It was T. Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard, as shown by the name on the killing contract. Very impressive, Ryunosuke. But actually, I didn't lie. The name on the target I was ordered to kill never passed my lips yesterday. The idea that Seishiro Jigoku was the mark came entirely from you. You deliberately avoided saying a name! The defense claims these 4 names indicate some sort of international assassin exchange. I'm sure I speak for all present when I say that the very idea seems utterly absurd. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what do you have to say for yourself? His silence only goes to prove his guilt. There's another very important point that this new development brings to light. There's now a distinct possibility that the scene of Inspector Gregson's actual murder was in the witness's cabin aboard the SS Groose. Judge Jigoku, you have to testify now. To refuse would put you in contempt of court. Ha 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 ha! There's no need for quite such a vicious stare, young man. Very well then. As a parting gift to you all, I'll tell you everything I know. It seems this Japanese gentleman has information that the court must hear about the alleged assassin exchange and the events of the night of 31st October. Present your formal testimony now. As you wish, my lord. It's true that Kazuma Asagi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was a condition of the British study tour. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission. On the evening in question, A member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. If there had been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved. So you admit it then. As this communication suggests, there really was an assassin exchange arrangement from Britain and Japan. A political endeavor at the highest levels, not something I could discuss here. To use such a worthy practice as foreign study to coerce somebody to commit murder, that's the most appalling thing I've ever heard. Appalling? Well, it's easy to judge. Pardon? Asuki had a reason for taking his sword to that British inspector, you know. What? Which is why he accepted the mission in the first place. Isn't that right, Council? Judge Jigoku, if you are the mastermind behind this operation in Japan, then tell the court the identity of your counterpart in Britain. I'm not obliged to divulge that information. As I said yesterday, I've killed nobody. I freely admit that I accepted the mission, but on the night the plan was to be executed, I backed out. In short, this assassin exchange that the defense has identified is unrelated to the events of this case. The crucial point is this. Your police inspector can't have perished aboard that steamship at Dunkirk, because if he'd been shot in the cabin, it's inconceivable that a member of the crew wouldn't have heard it. That's right. Gregson was killed after returning to London, in the room on Fresno Street. And the perpetrator of that crime was the Reaper, Barak von Zieks. The prosecution's accusation remains unchanged. To think that a seemingly innocent foreign exchange program was a facade for such Machiavellian dealings. Clearly, it's a plot only a government minister and high-ranking judge such as the witness could hope to execute. Well, I seem to recall that it was someone on the British side who controlled everything. Be that as it may, it is not the place of this court to pursue this villainous assassin exchange plot. We are concerned only with the tangible events pertaining to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Is the defense clear on that point, Counsel? Yes, my lord. I'll keep that in mind as I cross-examine the witness. Alright then. It's true that Kazuma Asuki was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. A year ago, when Kazuma was still in Japan then? Correct. It was at the examination center for applicants for the study tour that I approached him. I'll never forget it. I remember exactly what you said. You just came out and asked me forthright if I considered traveling to Britain on an assassination mission. Surely not. I thought it was a joke at first, of course, but then it was made clear to me that if I didn't accept it, I wouldn't be considered for the study tour. So you agreed to it just for that? I mean, I know how much you wanted to study in England, but assassination? The Empire of Japan had accepted a proposal from the British Empire at the time, an agreement to send a student from each country to the others to deepen cultural understanding and friendship. But behind the scenes, the chosen students were to be given assassination missions. I had no choice but to accept the proposal that originated from my British counterpart. Why? Why didn't you expose the plot there and then? Britain acknowledges no part in these alleged misbegotten dealings. I advise you not to make spurious allegations, Foreign Minister Jigoku. As a witness, I am bound to tell the truth, my lord. Anyway, I picked Asugi and explained the details of the plan to him. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was a condition of the British study tour. Why Kazuma? Why did you pick him as the assassin? He was the most capable of all the applicants. In addition, I knew his desire to travel to Britain was very strong. In fact, it was almost more than a desire, it was his whole purpose in life. Yes, that's his best friend, I could certainly attest to that. The way he threw himself into his studies, the way he pursued becoming qualified as a lawyer, it was ultimately for that one single goal of being accepted on a study tour to Britain. And of course, we know the reason behind that. he was determined to find out for himself the truth about his father, Genshin Natsuki. There's nothing I wouldn't have done to get here, be that agreeing to assume the role of an assassin, or betraying people's trust. Well, you certainly did a fine job of betraying my Natsuki. But why? Why was Inspector Gregson the target? I have no idea. Those were the orders from Britain. I was in no position to question them. You have no idea? Really? I find that hard to believe. Oh, do you? Judge Jigoku was once a visiting student here in Britain himself, of course. Perhaps he has some connection with Inspector Gregson from that time. The defense really ought to catch up. With what? With the fact that the Assassin Exchange has absolutely nothing to do with the case under scrutiny here. Yes, I've already admitted to recruiting Asugi. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission.
Hold it!
I presume you're referring to the incident that occurred during Cosmo's passage to Britain in January. The awful tragedy that took place on the steamship. Word arrived at the Ministry some 2 weeks after these ships' departure from our shores. The visiting student had been killed, but his body had somehow gone missing in Hong Kong. The news was wired to me from a detective I placed on the ship to accompany the assassin. Obviously, Cosmo didn't actually die at all, but he did lose his memory, including all details about the special mission. Did you not consider dispatching another assassin at that point? That wasn't possible, simply because that black-clad young student over there had already put himself forward as Asugi's replacement, and there was no way to stop him from reaching Britain. My hands were completely tied, so Mr. Scholl's strategy worked perfectly. He predicted everything that would happen. Months later, my memory returned, but I never intended to go through with the assassination mission anyway. So you were playing me right from the outset, were you? Is that it? I'd sooner be guilty of that crime than taking someone else's life. I was prepared to do whatever I had to in order to get myself here to Britain. Oh boy. This line of questioning has gone long enough. All the court should be concerned about in the testimony given by this witness are the details relating to his relationship with Inspector Gregson and the victim's murder. In that case, as I've already made perfectly clear, I had no connection to the man or his death. And you have some means of substantiating this plea. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times.
Hold it!
Outside your cabin in the first-class area of the SS Bruce, you mean? Yes, that's right. Not least because there was a murder of a student passenger earlier that year, I imagine. The liner's operators have taken to posting a crewman outside every first-class cabin door. I can confirm the presence of the crewman guard myself. What do you mean? Because I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk that night. I witnessed it with my own eyes. There was a well-built crewman standing guard directly in front of the door to the witness's cabin. At that particular time, of course, I'd gone to the ship's dining room for dinner. The inspector and I asked the crewman to allow us into the cabin while we waited for Judge Jigoku's return. I suppose Inspector Gregson was there in his capacity as a Reaper. He was intending to take the witness's life. Exactly. As I've said numerous times now, I had no intention of killing anyone. So the crewman let two potential assassins into the cabin he was supposed to be guarding. Not the most convincing of sentries, really. In truth, those were my thoughts too. But anyway, I stayed to talk with Inspector Gregson for a short while, and then I left him there and made my way off the ship alone. Was the guard still at the door when you went? Yes. He glared at me as I walked past. You see? That proves it. If there had been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so I clearly can't be involved.
Hold it!
The crewman who was standing directly outside your cabin door, you mean? That's right. A muscular man with a permanent grin expression on his face. He didn't want to move up from that spot. To be honest, I thought he was a miserable fellow. But as it happens, he is a vital witness now! There's no doubt that Gregson was killed by a gunshot. and it's inconceivable that a crewman standing just outside the cabin door wouldn't have heard that. But wait, what about the ship's enormous steam engines? The noise of them could have drowned out the sound of the gun being fired. Sadly, young judicial assistant, that won't wash. Oh? You will recall that my cabin was in the first class area of the ship, which is also, of course, the quietest. Don't imagine for a moment that there's anything like steerage where the judicial assistants go. I didn't mean... But a hole like that was made by a bullet was found in your cabin, Judge Jigoku. That's compelling evidence that a gun was fired in there. Was that a bullet hole? Oh yes, you're talking about what the detective uncovered in the wall yesterday, I presume. That was obviously a rotten panel eaten out by woodworm. No doubt he didn't find an actual bullet. Yeah, that's the hole in this argument. Sadly, I was unable to arrange for the crewman to be brought back to Britain with me, but obviously, if a gun had been fired in my cabin on the night in question, as the defense implies, I would have been arrested on the spot, and would never have made it to Britain in the first place. Very true. The witness's logic is sound. Since no gunshot was heard from the witness's cabin on the night in question, we must assume that the witness is telling the truth. I'm glad you've seen sense, my lord. I know Cosmo's already admitting to taking on this incredible assassination plot, but even so, hearing it confirmed by somebody else is still a real shock. It's unforgivable. Using Cosmo saw his feelings to manipulate him into agreeing to such a despicable plan. But I think Cosmo manipulated Judge Jigoku too. He completely double-crossed him. Oh dear, it's hard not to see that it's a stroke of brilliance on Cosmo-sama's part. On one way or another, though, Gregson ended up dead. I really think that a murder must have happened aboard that steamship. So you mean Judge Jigoku must be lying? I know I shouldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment, but you must destroy him, Mr. Naruto. Will do, but... how? Okay. All crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. What if...
Objection!
Yes! First try! Yes, as the court has heard, there was a crewman posted outside Judge Jigoku's cabin. However, we can be sure that, contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times. What? I have here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st. What? Where'd you get that? It's evidence gathered by Mr. Herlock Sholmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember. Herlock Sholmes again. According to this itinerary, after leaving the port of Dunkirk at exactly 10 p.m. and for a period of 20 minutes, all crewmen of the SS Bruce were to gather on deck for an evacuation drill. All crewmen were away from their posts? And during that 20-minute interval, of course, any gunshot emanating from your cabin would have been heard by no one. In summary, Judge Jigoku, you had ample opportunity to commit the crime. Gah!
Objection!
A 20-minute window of opportunity. That's an excellent find, Ryunosuke. But it amounts to nothing. Why? Because the witness has clearly stated in his testimony and that no incident occurred in his cabin. Unless you have some decisive evidence that could show that his testimony to be false, your accusation is nothing more than conjecture. Very true. Well, Consul? Inspector Gregson was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin that night. I'm certain of this. Because the defense has the evidence to prove it. You will present the evidence for the defense at once, Counsel. What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in Jigoku's cabin on the 31st? Okay. Well, the fact that this was found, that this thing was found in Judge Jigoku, this was found in your cabin yesterday. What is that? The crown of a pocket watch? A pocket watch. And if you will observe, the victim's pocket watch, which we know he treasured, is missing precisely that part. It can't be. Moreover, this crown is a perfect fit on the spindle protruding from the victim's watch. Now, the fact that this was retrieved from Judge Jigoku's cabin tells us that the victim's watch almost certainly broke there. In other words, the victim was killed on the 31st during the 20-minute evacuation drill. In the cabin occupied by you, Judge Jigoku. Well, you're razor sharp, aren't you, you young murderer? I was acquitted.
Objection.
Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible at first. But rather like this pocket watch, it's full of cracks. What? And I believe Judge Jigoku feels the same way. I was wrong to acquit you earlier in the year. Sorry, if I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty just to spare the world your ridiculous bombast. Jeez! Wow, that is ruthless. I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony. When you hear what actually happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall into which you stumbled. Prior to renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was in your room means that you acknowledge that he was there, I presume. Yes, I do. Very well, then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony about what exactly happened in your cabin aboard the ship on the evening of the 31st October. Of course, and as a man of the law, I have no intent of obstructing justice. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. As soon as I took care of him with an Ippon Seo throw, though he couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It was nothing to do with his murder. The inspector was clearly having returned to Britain because his body was found in London. Ippon Seo? Like a common jujutsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take. So, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves that the victim's murder took place there. Ah! I've no doubt the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely a tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense, as far as I can tell. I express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord. But if this testimony holds, Lord Chijoku would be deemed to have no involvement in the case. Well, counsel, I really see no reason wasting precious court time on a cross-examination. A little tough. Sorry, my lord. The defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that. You are an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten. In that case, proceed, Mr. Nahodo. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room.
Hold it!
Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass, you mean? Apparently, Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector, which was the truth, of course. He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. Excuse me, I need to put just clearing some room. Okay. Alright, I'm back. Alright, Alright, yeah. He had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced. But that the man accompanying him would have had two sword slung around his waist. You mean me? Who else? Yes, that's true. You would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head. The point is, I left the cabin before its occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship. Certainly, all I can tell you is that the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin. And you entered without an inkling of suspicion. That's right, none whatsoever. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed gentleman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me.
Hold it!
Obviously, you're talking about Inspector Gregson. Yes, though at the time I didn't know the man's name, and there was no time for introductions. I value my life over manners. By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose. That was certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction, but I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake so much in all my life. Anyone would think the man had never shot somebody before. Believe it or not, most of us haven't. Anyway, there was no time to call for help of the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself. I soon took care of him with an Ippon Sail throw. He couldn't wait to run away after that.
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun, that was a very brave move, wasn't it? My Ippon Sail is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you. But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it? Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow, and then managed to slip past him to make his escape. The outstanding guard does it again! Luckily, there aren't any situations I can't get out of using a quick Ippon Sail throw. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It had nothing to do with his murder. The crown snapped off, and the glass covering the face of the watch was cracked. Preferable to the man's head being pulled off, or his spine cracking, wouldn't you say? Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest soon after saw to that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place. Absolutely not. All the watch proves is the power of my jujutsu throw. Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall. And it was hidden. What are you talking about? That's what the star of your lowbrow detective stories told you, is it? What I don't care for this fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? No murder took place in my cabin. The inspector was clearly killed after having returned to the Britain because his body was found in London.
Hold it!
But there's no evidence that proves the victim ever returned to London alive. Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, Stripling. What? If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have gone back to Britain? When people die, they are killed. I mean, their bodies remain at the same spot. It's a devil of a thing. Well, then, obviously the culprit must have moved the body. How exactly? Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think? Well, yes, that's true, but all passenger luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels, and I would like to think that border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage. If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. There would be no sense in risk being caught by attempting to transfer the body back to Britain. That's killed that idea then. But perhaps not. Mr. Sada? We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them, which would mean the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative. Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems like going to have to explain it in words you can understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony with your consent, of course, my lord. I have no objection. State your amended testimony now. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain.
Hold it!
There's an idea. Think about it, Stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. The Synopsium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages organized by the ministry. And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel. So you did. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time? What? No! So we're in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain. Unless of course they develop some clever devices these days to instantly move things from A to B. Funny you should say that. Professor Harebrain's invention didn't actually work if you remember, Mr. Nahodo. Yes, of course. The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice. Yes, because there's really nothing more to say. So that's his story. Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say, Mr. Nahodo must have been murdered there, do we? Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one? And the fact is that Inspector Briggs' body was found in a little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin, the body would have to be moved somehow, obviously. Transporting a dead body over a country border that would be impossible for a majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit then. That could be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Nahodo. No way that you could have transported the corpse. There has to be some way that they did it, then. No way to transport a corpse. But we don't have his his luggage. Aha!
Objection!
There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Briggs' body, you say? I would say the opposite is true. And what's that supposed to mean? Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Briggs' body only back to Britain is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Ryunosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learned that when we first met upon your arrival in London. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say I'm rather envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? I knew you were jealous. I presume you recall this, Judge Goku. It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will notice, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside. Mr. Nahoto, sure you're not suggesting... I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Goku's trunk. Wow! And I wanted to check it out at first. Oh my gosh! That could have changed a lot of things if we just... Order in the court. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical. Counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk. Oh, believe me! Believe me! Oh boy, it's possible. It could! Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside his trunk. And verifying that this would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Shigoku? But inside his trunk, horrifying. And after we'd spoken to you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body. I don't have to listen to this nonsense. Dr. Gori, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged that there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are, but one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages, and the SS Bruce is no exception. Professor Mikitoba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Shigoku? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move, letting Asuki and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasonings in the new century, and I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already. Judge Goku, please stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. Defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical. Actual scene of the crime? The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. And as the accused, Baron von Zeeks, shot the victim at point-blank range. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this point, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning of the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here. How could you say that? Or quite simply, because the claim already contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Barry, testifies in counsel. I think you better explain yourself to the court, don't you? The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene of the Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. Close range, instant death, scorch marks at point entry. I mean, the autopsy does say that he was shot in the chest. Like, shot in the chest, like from the front, resulting in instant death. So he was killed at point blank both times. Like, either way. It doesn't really have any scorch marks on the end. So this is the type of revolver that's standard issue for members of the judiciary then. Yes, and when I asked about whether records are kept about who they're issued to, I was told that for the past 5 years they've been engraved with a unique serial number. Oh, but as far as I can tell, there's nothing like that on this gun. Which tells us that it must have been issued longer ago than that. Okay. Are we going to be retreading evidence?
Take that!
The Japanese really are a curious breed. To proffer an argument with such conviction only to present such nonsensical evidence. Perhaps my Japanese friend's inexplicable thinking is why people talk of the mystique of the East. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not the only Japanese around here. Do we even have a mirror? The court is not interested in the mystique or anything. You will be penalized accordingly. Was the victim killed in the room on Fresno Street, or was he moved there after his death? There's one piece of evidence that shows the answer to that question surprisingly clearly. And the correct one this time, then, Mr. Naruto. Gee, what gave you that idea? The gun? So it's clean? What? Photograph of the victim that he claimed was the very location that he claimed he wasn't killed. What? Yeah, but the point is the posture of the body itself. Huh? If Inspector Gregson had been shot there and there... Oh! Oh! It's out of the question that the body would have curled up in a ball like that. If he died instantly, he wouldn't have been able to curl up like that. Like, wouldn't have been able to curl up like that naturally. He would have been flat on the ground, or back, or at least on the back, like flat on his back. Oh, wow. Objection. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. You could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot which subsequently proved fatal. Objection! I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Goku, but it's your logic that's flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Yeah. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. You're suggesting... The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street before it was coldly turned out on the floor. From inside of a large travel trunk. No! You're quite right. The shape of the body is exactly as if it's been kept in a confined space. Oh boy! And no doubt he would have... Like, Judge Goku, please visit your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood. Ugh! Present my trunk? I refuse! What? What grounds? The Minister of Foreign Affairs from... I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan! I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations! In other words, Judge Shigoku, there is blood in your trunk. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to... Objection. At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be. You will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Oh boy, we got him. We're getting him. Order in the court. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what will it be? You can't be serious. You did it? Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Asagi? What? Very well. I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk. Exactly as postulated by the defense. What? You? Dear God, outrageous! So it was you! You admit to Inspector Brex's murder! No! I admit to nothing more than what I've said! Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin. In order to avoid unwanted attention, as the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So, I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else. You still can't deny it! If you did do it, then who on earth did kill the man? As you know, there was another person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. Moreover, he had already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life. Oh. That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Asagi. You... I never thought you'd stoop to this, Seishiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth, Prosecutor Kazuma Asagi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. Yes, and then on an assassination mission, no less. You wouldn't! So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more. I don't believe this. Counsel for the defense, what is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion on the night in question that the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Asagi. This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku, or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well, the defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Asagi is... totally possible, totally! Well, it is possible, my lord. What? How could you? Do you think I want to believe it? But the fact is, I can't say with complete certainty that it was what actually happened wasn't happened because I wasn't there. You disappoint me, Rinosuke. If I may, Mr. Naruto. I think perhaps that's why we form opinions based on evidence. Ah, so true. And actually, we have evidence that can settle this argument conclusively. My lord, the defense would like to present evidence in support of... Before you plow on feigning ignorance of what has occurred, counsel, you must be penalized for that short but embarrassing you uttered a moment ago.
My spleen!
Perfect timing. Perfect. Thank you for the host, Wolf Boy. And boo to you too. I really thought I could just brush past it if I was quick enough. Never mind the penalty, Mr. Naruto. The truth is all that matters. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claim that logical reasoning is the future of judicial process. It is, no question. Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Asagi to commit the crime. What? Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. The court will only accept this argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that that allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Asagi's involvement? Okay. Okay. What proves, what disproves that Asagi did it? Okay, he was sent to do that, but he... Wait. It has to be a sword. No, wait. But... I'm gonna try.
Take that!
You're making the evidence weep here, Yunosuke Naruto. Sorry? Oh. Every piece of evidence that has a role to play in arriving at the truth. They're not playthings that you can toss around the courtroom for entertainment. Ah! Never mind the evidence. Never mind the evidence. You're about to make me weep, Mr. Naruto. Oh no, I can't upset Sasada-san. I realize I'm being upset too. I know a member of the crew was on sentry duty outside the first-class cabins nearly all the time. So as long as the guard was there, it would have been impossible to fire a shot without it being heard. And that very much narrows down when the crime could have been committed. The court will only accept... Okay. What disproves the... This?
Take that!
This is the itinerary for crew members of the SS Bruce, my lord. This is conclusive proof. An itinerary? How does that prove anything? Judge Jigoku, the moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. What? Why? On the night in question, as always, a crewman sentry was sent out on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. And that narrows it down to 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock, as indicated by on the itinerary. Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far. But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place. The steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Now, clearly the murder could have only been committed by somebody who was who was aboard the vessel at the time. But Prosecutor Osugi stated in yesterday's proceedings, I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. He left. I spent the night at a boarding house in the town and returned to England the following morning. Yes, which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Osugi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Hold it! No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all. What do you mean? The boy just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, he left my cabin. He hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship, just waiting for his chance to come back and finish the. Now that's out of the question, isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. As I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodation register book. All extremely easy to verify and undeniable proof. No, I... There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder had happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it, Seishiro Jigoku? It was a damn trial 10 years ago. That's when all this began. Yes. Looking back, now my fate was decided that day. It was doomed already. He did it again! He broke it again! It's over! My life! It's over! He broke the witness stand again! British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins would use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Osugi. But things didn't go according to your plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain, and you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement, because I was already on my way to Britain at the time in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Synopsium, I presume. That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain, so I enlisted the help of my British counterpart, and made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation with the Reaper himself. So, it means that the assassin exchange was all planned by the Reaper? I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. It's Strongheart. It has to be Strongheart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death. How awful. It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting. For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock. I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came round and went for me in a reckless move. He got a shot at you. I received a British issue gun 16 years ago. Being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student, I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that. So the revolver belongs to you, does it? Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Groose, which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room. And then on arriving in Dover, you can steal the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police. I'm sorry, I cannot hold it much longer. I have to pee. So I'll be right back. Okay, alright. Let me just bring me back here, and alright then, alright, let's keep going. I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit, so I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk. That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then. Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling firecrackers. Miss Venus, of course. I conceived of the candle trick there and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. What sort of disguise? For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece for his own traveling case. So I put that on, although I suspect I drew more attention to myself than I would have otherwise. The hairpiece we found at the scene, the inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation. I only arrived at the room at around 4:45. So I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later. So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap. Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder. What was that? I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips. I didn't notice that it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back in his pocket the following morning, but, well, it seems that the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish. Oh, anyway, that's everything. All the sort of details of what I did. I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. An exchange of assassins, what a foolhardy idea. Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you say now could make matters any worse for you now. Just tell us! Enough! I've already told you that I cannot say. Even though as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again. What are you waiting for? Can we get this over with now? It's finished. All of it. I'm finished. Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us is admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. Seiichiro Jigoku, it is the opinion of this court that you should be found and may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court. This can't be it. We need to find out who did it. Moments ago, Mr. Jigoku signed a written confession admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt. Oh, wonderful. Well done, Mr. Nahuda. Yes, thank you. Is something wrong? I'm just a little troubled by his silence. The true identity of the Reaper of the Bailey and this extraordinary assassin exchange, we do remain in the dark about these mysteries. However, insofar as the indictment brought against the defendant in this trial, we've reached a conclusion. I have every intention of pursuing both mysteries. As a prosecutor. As you wish. Now, for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant, Beric von Zieks,
Objection.
Oh. He's gonna bring up his father, isn't he? The prosecution calls for the adjudication to be deferred. Counsel. The accused's innocence hasn't been fully established at all, and therefore it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. That is the prosecution's unwavering position. What? But Judge Goku has already confessed. Nevertheless, Barrack von Zeeks has committed crimes for which he must be punished. Well, it would appear you have information that the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Asagi. Certainly, the murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Senator Jigoku, but it's clear from the witness's testimony that he was coerced into complying with a plot, into the sick, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but... So what I want to know is, who coerced Jigoku? Who was pulling the strings? The victim went to France having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper, only to be murdered. In other words, the mastermind behind it, the assassin exchange, is someone in a position to give such an order. As we've already established, the Reaper himself. Well, certainly that would appear to follow. The prosecution hereby formally accuses a man in the dock, Barrack von Zeeks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, I'm going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What? We're not done yet. Order, order, order! The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery, Counsel. Are you suggesting you have some new information with which to build a case? Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Zeeks very thoroughly in that regard, and they found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he is the Reaper. Perhaps, but circumstances have now changed. What do you mean? It's already been established the assassin exchange was negotiated with Jigoku by the Reaper himself, which means we now have a new line of questioning which to identify definitively the man's identity. That is the prosecution's intention here. I must say I'm surprised by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name. You're guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zeeks. And I will bring you to justice for it. Whatever it takes. That explains Cosmo's silence before. He'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zeeks unwittingly started 10 years ago. Very well. Whilst it's extremely irregular, I will on this occasion grant the prosecution further opportunity for witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has with the Reaper and the assassin exchange. I thank you, my lord, for guiding the court so wisely. I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing. Pray turn a blind eye to the discourtesy as I verify this vile and unremitting accusation. Hasn't soured the content of my hallowed chalice. Lord Van Zeeks, where did you keep getting those chalices? I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now, and ever since that time I've endured the weight of implied guilt that's gone with it. So I welcome the chance to testify now, and crush those allegations once and for all. Good. Then let justice decide, Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness in order that he may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey. And what does that says the defense? Putting the defendant in the witness stand can be extremely dangerous, and Cosmo-sama is so emotional at the moment, he's not thinking logically. You're right that he's not himself. But I knew it would be like this, and I came here today determined to face him through whatever might arise, as a lawyer and as his friend. That's what we must do. The defense has no objection, my lord. Very well, defendant. You will take the witness stand, and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper, and the assassin exchange. As you wish, my lord. Oh, we're starting now! We're starting now! I've never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassin exchange. Okay. So you deny all accusations by the prosecution, that you are the Reaper of the Bailey and that you masterminded the assassin exchange. I acknowledge the public at large believes me to be the Reaper. However, that's a fallacy, which I alone am in position to forswear. Naturally, the prosecution believes the testimony just given by the accused to be untrue. Yes? Let me ask you, why are you here? What really brings you to this courtroom? I desire to uncover the truth. Even if the truth proves your client to be guilty? From my experience in this courtroom, I've come to realize something. The truth can't be hidden. Sooner or later, it will come out. So it's always my intention to work with my client in pursuit of the truth. I want you to remember what you just said. Enough dilatory chatter. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination of the witness. Yes, my lord. I know exactly what you're thinking, Kazuma. I know you're just waiting to point it out. The contradiction you're convinced lies somewhere within this man's testimony. I've never taken the life of another, nor have instructed another to kill.
Hold it!
So you're not what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey. Exactly. Don't imagine for a moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer on this. I realize that. If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this could take a while, Kazuma! Did you find it disturbing, though? That one by one, defendants who've been acquitted after your unsuccessful prosecution were killed. Let me answer that question by posing another. If by one, defendants who've been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing? Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel with a one-word answer like that. Exactly. Well, that told me. But even though I am not the Reaper, that doesn't mean I ignored all the hearsay. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement.
Hold it!
You say for years. How long exactly? Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this courtroom. 10 years ago now. And your investigations led you somehow to inspect Gregson, you're saying. I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We worked on cases together in the past. A friend, even. Friend, even? It felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the yard without his knowledge. Which is when you found his secret notebook, is it? It's when I first learned of the location he noted only as Groose, and the appointment at 5 p.m. on the 31st. Though I didn't know the significance of those details at the time. So now we're at the nub of the matter. As it turns out, the significance for me personally was very unfortunate. That's the reason I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body.
Hold it!
But why did you go to that specific location? I thought that if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock, I would catch whoever was involved red-handed. Sadly, all that was awaiting me was the inspector's corpse. Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jigoku. Exactly. Jigoku had intended to implicate Hugh Boone, but unhappily for me, I arrived at the scene first. A ridiculously careless blunder. Moved on to just throwing insults around, I see then, Kazuma? Think what you will. It doesn't change the truth. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson.
Hold it!
There is a link between you and Gregson, though. Of course. We were close acquaintances. We've worked on numerous cases together. I consider the man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons. He did? Such as what? Where to buy good fish and chips. And such like. Seriously? Wow, that was convincing. Dr. Wilson was a coroner, but that was some time in the past. In any case, I understand it was several years ago now that he was invited to work at a Japanese university. That's right. He was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo. It should be unambiguously clear then that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive for sending some assassin across the oceans to kill the man. It sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it, but something about this just doesn't quite sit right with me. Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassin exchange.
Hold it!
Certainly, as it stands, there's no evidence to suggest that you concocted this scheme.
Objection!
But as it stands, we have only the accused's insistence of his innocence. Sorry? Perhaps there is some reason that would explain why he masterminded the assassin exchange. If a reason could be established later in these proceedings, then the accused's claim in his testimony that he wasn't involved would amount to perjury. Well, yes, that's true, but clearly Kazuma-sama intends to identify a reason and use it to make his case. So if we don't identify something first, he'll gain the advantage. This could be dangerous. He's luring us into a trap, and we're gonna fall for it. A convincing testimony by Lord Van Zeeks. Certainly, with no apparent connection between the three men, there's no way to establish a motive. The testimony seems unassailable as far as I can see. Oh dear me, what a bleak expression. I agree, there doesn't appear to be any particular link between them at first glance, but with the inclusion of one other person, I must be overthinking it, surely. Another person, Mr. Nahada? I need to think back over all the information we've gleaned so far. Alright, and I'll review my notes about the case and all evidence with the court record. Could it be that Lord Van Zeeks has something to hide after all? Clint Van Zeeks, John H. Wilson. Why don't we bring this up then?
Objection!
Sorry, bruh. What's this, an autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old. From the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. What? My brother's autopsy report? I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth. Sorry, Zeeks. An order in the court. What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel? The autopsy report of the professor's final victim is an undeniable link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant. Not that accursed name again, the professor! I've personally researched all the court records relating to that case. I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victim's souls, and for a member of the aristocracy like Lord Clint Van Zeeks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored the powers that be to allow the autopsy to go ahead, Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain that he would obtain conclusive proof from the procedure. and it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible on the document. As promised by Gregson, the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asagi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind. Indeed, that was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes and the conclusive evidence that convicted him. It enabled Lord Van Zieks to adhere to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvelous victory in court. A marvelous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true. What? Could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death. That's outrageous! And now, 10 years later, for some reason, the secret has been threatened and needs protecting. Which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? By someone in power in Japan and in Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange. It does make sense. Order at once! 10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore myself that I'd prove it, which is why I had to come to Britain. Whatever the cost. You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese's tenacity of purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer. Come on, Kazuma, you know this won't wash! You're claiming that your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago! You must see that without evidence, there's nothing more than a wild accusation! As it happens, I have evidence. What? As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him on the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Seishiro Jigoku, but my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth. What truth? The truth about the evidence, and he acknowledged what I've already deduced. There is a closely guarded secret about what went on in that autopsy 10 years ago. What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret. While we waited for my supposed mark in Jigoku's cabin, I drew my client's illustrious sword Karuma before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was. Right, I see. You're that Asagi's young lad, aren't you? Oh yeah. And what, you're gonna cut me down with that thing? Is that it? That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth. That's all. Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately, back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick. So, you admit it then? The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated! It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders. Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak! I'm not saying another word. Even if your life depends on it? That's right. Even then... So that's when the tip of the sword broke. Kazuma-sama, if the results of Clint Van Zieks' autopsy were fabricated, then the investigating officer Gregson and the lead coroner Wilson must have known about it. And they could only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barrick Von Zieks. In other words, the defendant did have cause to organize this exchange of assassins. Exactly. And as was established earlier, it has been the Reaper himself who liaised with Jigoku in Japan to arrange the exchange. So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in this courtroom today, Barrack von Zeeks.
Objection!
Kazuma Asagi. What? What you've just told the court. Are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago? I heard it with my own ears. His shameful admission. In that case, I know. The name of the Reaper. What? What? Oh, he knows exactly who it is just based on that. I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one. If Lord Van Zeeks isn't the one behind all this, then yes, there is only one other person who could have done something like that. I believe I know who it is too. You! I just had a feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is... Oh, it's totally Susato.
Take that!
It's really palpable now. That overwhelming pressure that's making it almost impossible to speak before this gargantuan foe. But I can't back away now. There's no time. What's the matter, Counsel? I take exception to the look you're giving me. I was just gathering my thoughts. I'm ready to voice my defensive opinion now. Very well, but before you do, a penalty for time wasting. Ugh. Inosuke. Counsel for the defense, reveal your belief about the identity of the Reaper. If you have the courage to resolve to utter the name that is. I just had a feeling. Okay. Like, there has to be some. Okay, it's okay. They're all the same. Okay, I know exactly who it's gonna be. I voiced this opinion earlier. Voiced this theory a long time ago.
Take that!
The only person who could have arranged the assassin exchange and manipulated the autopsy results is the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Male Strongheart. What? Lord Strongheart? Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the prosecution of the professor in court, but he only took over the case after his brother Lord Flint Van Zeeks had been killed. I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history. Well, hello, Lord Van Zeeks? 10 years ago, I was very new to my profession, but I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for the control of the case. Yeah. He took over, like, the fact he took over basically gave Strongheart an out. It gave him, it pretty much gave him an alibi, basically. The investigation to that point, the supplication of the lords to allow my brother's corpse to be examined. All the evidence I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you. I've spent my life since then believing I was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial, but I see now. I was very much mistaken. It was a hugely influential force that caused the inspector and the coroner to break the law 10 years ago, and that same force was still felt a decade later on the other side of the world by Seishiro Jigoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when we recognize that you are the Reaper of the Bailey. He arranged for all those things. The court awaits your response, my lord. This may very well go in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. Consider this a formal accusal by the defense. It doesn't warrant a response. A formal accusal? Don't be absurd. The defense's claim are utterly nonsense. A wild fantasy at best. You're not going to defend yourself? You claim there was some wrongdoing with Lord Clint Van Zeke's autopsy? That's utterly untrue.
Objection.
But I heard it from Gregson's own lips. He admitted to it. And where is your evidence? What? Gregson's dead now. Unless you were thinking of summoning a ghost to the stand. You mean to say... I forget how the system works in your little backwater country. But in the courts of the British Empire, without evidence, there is no case. I have no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly be substantiated by anyone or anything. We literally have to fight the judge. We're fighting the judge in court. Holy cow. Following Inspector Gregson's murder and in light of Inspector Wilson's death as well, there's really no one left who could testify about the events 10 years ago. Is there? And he set that up. He had all of them. He had Wilson and Gregson killed. Like, they had them assassinated to keep them silent about that 10 years later. So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange. This court has no business raking over the coals of a case that was concluded a decade ago. The accusal brought by the prosecution of the defense is categorically denied. I take it there are no objections. Kazuma, he's more or less waited his whole life for this moment. Is there really nothing else we can do now? Is there no other avenue we could go down in pursuit of the truth of what happened all those years ago? Or there was someone who could testify about Clint Van Zeke's autopsy? Except there is someone. But there's totally no one. He's gone to extraordinary lengths to cover his tracks. Even so far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Dr. Wilson's silence. Like Dr. Scythe won't say anything against Strongheart. Ryunosuke, please! I'm sorry, Kazuma. Mr. Nahada. Isn't there someone rather important whom you've overlooked? Huh? Your silence is beautifully eloquent. I take it we've reached the end of this debate, then? Let the matter be closed for good.
Objection.
Actually, there is one person. One person who could still testify about that autopsy. Don't be ridiculous. There's no one left! Who? Ryunosuke, who? Tell me! Kazuma, Please, this trial can't end. Not yet! I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth. The person the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeke's is... Oh boy. Well, Dr. Scythe is not on the list. I have two ideas. Like,
Take that!
denied. What? I want to know why. And I want to know why you're proposing to call such a witness to that look of utter desperation in your face. In other words, you're wide on the mark, Ryunosuke. Very wide. Thanks. Don't spare my feelings or anything. Given the contemptible allegation you're making, Counsel, I won't be letting that blunder pass unpunished. Yeah. There was somebody else present at the autopsy, Mr. Nahoto. Surely you haven't forgotten. No, I know. I'll get right this time. Wait.
Take that!
Heaven help us. Another Japanese. An expert in forensic medicine, my lord. Professor Yujin Mikotoba. 16 years ago, he came to London with Seishiro Jigoku and Genshin Asugi as a visiting student. And what would his testimony possibly tell us? Professor Mikotoba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report. Incorrect. The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature. It was the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the coroner's work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report at the end and signed it. In other words, Professor Mikotoba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. The defense demands that Professor Mikotoba be summoned as a witness as a matter of urgency. Whatever happened in that autopsy laboratory 10 years ago is something only he could tell us. The defense demand is denied. What? But Professor Mikotoba is in London this very moment. We can summon him to the stand in minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Strongerheart has no intention of summoning anyone who knows. He's too concerned about protecting himself. Prosecutor Asugi, let me refresh your memory, as you seem to have forgotten the prosecution's stance. Only minutes ago, you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and the masterminding the assassin exchange. I did, yes. Yes. So present your evidence for those claims, and make your case complete. At this time, I don't have the requisite evidence, but that's exactly why we need the witness's testimony. The professor case is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. I'm afraid to say, Prosecutor Asugi, that you would appear to be possessed by the spirit of your late homicidal father. Now, as I stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand. Inspector Gregson was murdered by Japanese Supreme Court Judge Seishiro Jigoku. And as for any hidden circumstances that may exist, they will be investigated in due course by the proper authorities.
Objection.
But we all know what will happen. That'll just give the mastermind of the whole Venture Time time to cover his tracks again. By which you mean me. Yeah. Your punishment for this contemptible behavior will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Asugi, you will be remanded for following these procedures. Willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. This futile game of revenge is over. Young Master Asugi. Oh no! That'll be all. I hereby declare this trial to be over. Court is... Yes! Mr. Sholmes! This is no place for amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public. You will leave the courtroom at once.
Objection.
Mr. Sholmes was instrumental in the apprehension of Seishiro Jigoku before he fled from Europe. The court should hear what he has to say. Lord Mail Strongheart, it's imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to an end at this stage. Is it really? And why would that be? You need only recall your own words from the opening of the trial to answer that question, if I may. We will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be that the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it? The whole truth, sir, has already been uncovered. It would seem that we have a great many important members of the judiciary present here today. I put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited to attend? To nod along with the prevarications of your superiors? Order! Order in the court! It seems to me that we stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices, a door that is ajar. Let us emerge from the shadows of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows, have the power to push this door open now. The auditors of the gallery have no right to express an opinion in uncourt proceedings. Silence! He's right. The judge has absolute authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. Will he do? I sense dark things occurring behind the scenes. Dark things indeed. Is the secret president here that also say he doesn't do the same? What? The trial should go on. Summon the witness! That's right. We need to clear this up before the young Japanese family remanded. Remanded in custody. My lord, you assured those present that you would uncover the whole truth here. Vindicate yourself of this outlandish accusation. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's the very foundation of British law. A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery. On with the trial. Well, my lord, you hear the voice of British justice, I take it? I think you'll find it will be rather awkward to silence. The court will recess briefly. I have no intention of shrinking from these allegations. Bailiff, arrange for the subpoena of the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives at the courthouse, we shall reconvene. A recess won't be necessary, my lord. Pardon. Mikitoba is a close friend of mine. He accompanied me today and is waiting in the antechamber as we speak. I do believe he's been enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact. What? Professor Mikitoba is here in the courthouse. Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you? My dear fellow, no one is in a better position to answer that question than you, surely. I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know. Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, you are no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once. But of course, in truth, I find myself rather busy now as a result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo? Yes? I trust you have Iris's little lucky charm with you. Absolutely. It's still in my pocket. She sends her regards and a reminder. If you find yourself at a dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please. Oh, of course. In that case, the trial will continue without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand. So it's Lord Strongheart. He's the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? Just how deep am I going to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss? Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to head into the heart of this maelstrom and confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. To be continued. Oh. Oh man. We are at the end game now. The final part of the trial. We are about next time tomorrow we will finish this game and put an end to this case once and for all, and the whole series, or to this whole series of the great Ace Attorney. It's been a wild ride, but all things must come to an end, and I have no doubt that this will be a very thrilling end to this. So don't wait. So I just can't wait. I can't wait. But I will have to wait. Because if the last trial of the first game was any indication, if I continued out, I'm gonna still be here until 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I'm just not gonna risk that. So